Boa noite a todos. Nós vamos reiniciar os trabalhos, última sessão, né, do primeiro turno do nossa Semana de Filosofia. A nossa primeira conferência será referida pelo professor Guillaume Fréchette, que terá como tema Brentano on the Session. Welcome to our talk.
Okay, thank you. So I'll try to give a short version of my paper so that we can have more time for discussions and we can have our brains a little bit released from all these papers that we heard. At least speaking for me, that would be, I think, a good thing. So, thank you for the invitation to speak here and for the whole organization. My topic is perceptions of Brentano and perceptions, and what does Brentano have to say on perception? And so how can we, or what could we do out of what Brentano says in perception? The first question is, of course, what is perception? It's perception, I mean, if we think about a very general view of perception, we have sensory modalities that give us access somehow to the world, so to things outside our minds. So we have visual perception, we have tactile perception, we have different kinds of perception, well, more or less corresponding to the different sensory modalities. So there is a general view, and I think this is a popular view, and this is the view also I agree with, is that perception is an awareness, an openness to the world. So through perception, we have contact with the world, right? This is, I think, the kind of view which is defended in modern philosophy of mind, which was defended by many philosophers, but not all. And it is not clear if Brentano actually defended the view. We have this view of British empiricists like Locke, who were basically saying, well, we have access to some sensory data. But it's not the world, it's not this chair, this table, and so on. So is Brentano siding with the empiricists, or is he defending a conception of perception that would at least address the issue that we have contact, we have a connection with the world in perception, the world of tables and chairs, so to speak. So there is a received view, or a general account of Brentano, where Brentano sides, so to speak, with the British empiricists. So this is what I call the common reading of Brentano's conception of perception. I think we can sum up this account in three premises, which are justified by three very simple arguments. So, the first thesis that we usually attribute to Brentano is that perception is a special case of intentionality. So, the argument goes like this. Brentano says all mental phenomena are intentional. Perceptual experiences, or perceptual experience in general, is a mental phenomenon, and so therefore perceptual experience is intentional. So this is basically the idea. The first premise was discussed in other talks today, earlier. The second premise was not discussed, but it is presented in psychology from an empirical standpoint, and from this we can conclude that perception or perceptual experience is intentional. So, first premise, perception is a special case of intentionality. The second premise is that perception is of something that truly exists. This is what I call, or what a lot of people call, the foundation of this thesis. So, the argument goes like this. Perception, as Brentano says in German, Wahrnehmung. This is interesting terminologically because it means something like taking for true or taking. So perception, Wahrnehmung, literally is perception of something that truly exists. The idea here that something that truly exists is also problematic, but I'm not going to discuss this. Brentano uses das wirklich existiert, oder das wahrlich existiert. So there are things that truly exist and things that only merely exist. I will not address this issue here, but this premise is important because the second one is that only mental phenomena, so your representation, your judgment, your active coordination, only mental phenomena truly exist. So therefore, only inner perception, perception of mental phenomena, is perception in the relevant sense of the term. So this is a quite important thesis. It is a foundation of this thesis because it basically means that perception is primarily what we innerly perceive, so what we have, the perception of what we have in our minds. So this is the foundation of this thesis because you will say, okay, I cannot tell if the objects in the outer world are exactly as I see them or as I present them, but I can very well tell that the presentation that I am having is truly existing. I don't know if this computer truly exists, but I know with absolute certainty that my presenting the computer exists. Okay. So this is the second thesis. The third thesis is the conclusion of both theses, of course, is that literally there is only inner perception, that is perception of, and here the underscores are meant to indicate that this expression, mental phenomena intentionally containing something, has to be taken as a unit. Not you cannot also decompose it somehow. Okay. So literally, there is only inner perception, that is perception of mental phenomena intentionally containing something. So there is no outer perception. Sometimes Brentano will say, well, outer perception is actually a false statement, a false statement. So this is a very strong thesis, of course, but if you're a foundationalist, you have to cope with it. The problem with this conclusion, so there is only inner perception, is that it doesn't say a word about what outer perception is. Is there an outer perception? Is there in some relevant sense a perception of existing or simply merely objects in the outer world? Is there a sensory perception? So if you take Brentano literally, there wouldn't be any sensory perception. There is only inner perception. So this is the standard reading. I'm not here defending this thesis, I'm actually arguing against it. But the idea is that if you follow this reading, then you have to exclude the idea that there would be something like our perception. So, and what about perception, as I already said, what about perception as ordinarily or broadly understood, as I said in the introduction, as an openness to and an awareness of the world? So, if you think, like I do, that there is something so important in the idea that perception gives us access to the world, then Brentano's account is really not for you. I mean, this Brentano's account in this reading, at least. So, and so these are the open questions I will try to address here. So what about perception as ordinarily or broadly understood, as an openness or an awareness of the world? So according to the conclusion of this small argument I presented, perception broadly understood is impossible. What it means is that the argument from hallucination is correct. So let me just spell out what I mean by the argument from hallucination. This is an argument that is used in philosophy of mind. So the first premise is that an hallucinatory experience as of an ordinary object as F, so as ground, for example, is not a case of awareness of an ordinary object. So this is the first premise. The veridical experiences of ordinary objects as F, or as ground, for example, and their hallucinatory counterparts are to be given the same account. So, let's say you defend this reading of Brentano, or you defend this conception of perception as only of inner perception. How are you going to tell the difference between a mere hallucination of a pink elephant right here, and the perception force of a real elephant? So you cannot really tell the difference. This is the problem. And of course, the conclusion of this argument is that therefore we are not perceptually aware of ordinary objects in veridical experience. So this is, if you defend this reading of perception as Brentano seems to defend, if you defend this reading of perception as only being inner perception, then you have to go with the argument from hallucination. And this is, of course, a problem. And the consequences of this agreement with the argument is that, well, you have to argue against perception as understood in terms of openness to the world, and you have to accept also that you have to argue also against awareness that we are not aware of mind-independent objects. So this is the problem, so to speak, and now I will just present two main options to solve this problem that we find also in the literature. And I think both of them are not really satisfactory. But both of them are trying to take into account Brentano's conception of intentionality, of intentional objects, the fact that we have, when we are directed towards something, that we have something inexistent in our mind. Well, in general, so these readings are these options are really quite trying to give an account, to give a general account. But I will just say why I'm not so satisfied about these options. So, the first option would be to say, to give a relational reading of the thesis tree. So just to remember, the thesis tree is that there is only inner perception, that is perception of mental phenomena intentionally containing something. So, one reading, this is a relational reading, much in the line with the British empiricists, but also John Stuart Mill. So, well, the idea would be to say, okay, in this case, we have, when I see a blue patch of blue of this chair, there's a real relation. So I directly perceive mental objects, and not objects outside the mind, and these objects are dependent upon the mind. The problem with such a reading, when you try to understand what Brentano is saying in this way, is that it brings Brentano dangerously close to phenomenalism. The idea of phenomenalism is that you have no access to external reality. So what exists if are only phenomena. This is basically the position of phenomenalism. Ernst Mach was a phenomenalist, for example. So that would bring Brentano and Ernst Mach to this very similar position, actually. And the problem, of course, is that it brings what we call the field of perception. The idea that we don't really have access to the objects. Perception is actually like a field, violence of our eyes. We just don't see where that it is. This is not very satisfactory, I think. If you want to give an account, as Brentano has in mind, to give an account of philosophy, which includes psychology, but which also includes metaphysics. We're speaking about substances in metaphysics. Brentano wants to speak about substances. He says there are substances. This is a thesis that he defends in his metaphysics. Okay, so if there are substances, but we don't have access to them, how are we going to bridge these two ideas together? You can say, oh, well, it's all reducible to some kind of sense data theory, but then it's not really giving an account of the idea that there are substances. This is just a small problem, but I think it already shows that this view is perhaps not the most interesting one or the most attractive one. The second reading that one could give is also very interesting. Wojciech presented yesterday in some ideas that he thinks that are related with Brentano. And I think that would be probably here on Wojciech's reading of Brentano. I think you would agree. So you could try to spell out Brentano's position in these terms. You would say something like this: in perception, an object seems to be in a particular way, and this predicate seems to be in a particular way actually expresses a representation of content. So this is a special relation. There might be an object or not. So if I have a presentation of the chair seems to be in a particular way. I see it from a certain perspective, and I give it also some, so I see it thanks to the representation I have of it. So if I have if I hadn't seen any chairs in my life, I had no concept of a chair, then I would see something quite different than when I see a chair and I know what a chair is. And so this is basically the idea of intentionalism. So in this term, we would say, okay, well, Brentano means by thesis 3 that there is only inner perception of immanent object, basically. We could say, well, this is a special relation. There might be an object or not. The problem is that it fits only loosely with what Brentano is saying. And this is where I'm not completely in agreement with Wojciech on this point. So, because it doesn't fit really well, because Brentano has this concept of physical phenomena. And physical phenomena are not bearer of semantic information. When you have a representational theory, remember what I just said about the chair, about having the concept of a chair, that makes you see the chair as a chair and not as some kind of weird object. So this is semantic information. So, but Brentano's physical phenomena are not bearer of semantic information. These are, in Brentano's term, presentation and not representation. It's an important difference here, because when we use the term representation in philosophy of mind today, we always think of bearer of semantic information. Brentano doesn't think about it. What he has in mind is some kind of phenomena that is caused by some theory of which we have no idea what it is called. So I have some kind of apparition or phenomenon, a shining. But it's just somehow an image. There is no semantic information to it. So in Brentano's term, they are not representational. They are not about the world. This is also an important point. Intentionalism basically says, okay, representations are bearer of semantic content, and they are intentional because basically they are about the world. This is not Brentano's position. The physical phenomena are not intentional. So remember this very well-known quote that only mental phenomena are intentional. In Brentano's sense, that means that physical phenomena are not intentional. So they cannot be about the world. Okay. So intentionalism is an interesting option, but it brings elements in Brentano's theory or in Brentano's worldview, the mental, if you like. It brings new problems, but it's perhaps a solution. I think people like Tim Crane are very keen on this kind of reconstruction of Brentano. But people like Uriah Keaton or other people that are in the movement of phenomenal intentionality will say something different. But I'm not talking about this here. Just want to point out that this is a difficult account. If you want to give an account of Brentano's position, of course, if you want to give a systematic account of perception, it's perfectly fine in my view. And the second option is to go with a non-relational reading of what Brentano has in mind. So when he says perception is actually inner perception of mental phenomena containing something in themselves, we could say what he means by this is that the content of one mental act. So I have this presentation of the chair. The content of one mental act is a property of the perceptual experience. It's not an intentional object. It's a property of my experience. This is why we call this thesis that was presented in the 50s by Henri Ducasse. It was also developed further by Roderick Chisholm. This is why we call it adverbialism, because it's somehow a mode of your thinking, and it's not property of some object or an object with a special property. So there's a big advantage, I think, in this conception, is that it might be adapted to a position that Brentano defended, which is realism in his late philosophy. He rejected the idea that we have intentional objects, so to speak. He says, in his later phase, he says, when we have presentations or mental acts or mental phenomena in general, these are phenomena that are about something real. We will say, okay, when I present, when I have the presentation of a flower, actually I present someone who's thinking of a flower. So this is the kind of model that Brentano will favor later in his career. So it's an advantage if you think that this is the right view, that the realism is the right view, then it's certainly the way to go. But the problem still remains: where are the intentional contents? Adverbialism, the basic idea of adverbialism is to get rid of intentional content. So if you want to keep the intentional contents into the picture, you cannot really go the non-relational way. So these are the three views, basically, the three possible accounts of the standard view of what Brentano wanted to say. So thesis number 3, remember, only inner perception is only inner perception of mental phenomena containing something intentionally in themselves. So this is the thesis. 3 possible interpretations. So we can go in the sense data theory direction, but it leads to phenomenalism, which is a problem. Or not. Of course, you can argue that Brentano was a phenomenalist, but I think it's not very attractive account. Or you go the second way, you go the way of intentionalism, but then, as I already said, it brings elements in Brentano's account which are really not what he intended to say about physical phenomena. Or then adverbialism. So I think the presupposition of all these three accounts is that what we know about perception with evidence in inner perception is what constitutes perception. And this is all there is to know about perception. So I think this is the presupposition of all these three accounts. It is quite obvious, I think. But the problem with this, these possible ways to go is that in all cases we have a predominance of the thesis too, that inner perception is perception as of something that truly exists. So it eliminates the concept of perception as of an access to sensory data. And this is, I think, a very one-sided account of Brentano's account of perception, Brentano's conception of perception. Sure, Brentano in psychology from an empirical standpoint is interested in this conception, in grounding, so to speak, our analysis of our concept of mental phenomena on inner perception. But this is about concept. This is not about the data or what we see or whatever. So this is, I think, right that in psychology from an empirical standpoint, he has this concept. But this is not the whole story. Brentano is interested in the physiology of perception as well. It's simply just a position or a topic that is not debated in the psychology from an empirical standpoint. But that was, Brentano had the plan to discuss this in further book. Then there was no pressure to publish anymore somehow, and well, this is of course an historical explanation, but it gives, I think, a good picture of why Brentano didn't publish it. So, what is the physiological psychology in Brentano's conception? So, Brentano doesn't only accept the following thesis. I will just get through this in a moment. So he accepts all of this, but he also tries to justify it. This is taken from manuscript, basically, that will be published by myself and a colleague in Salzburg on descriptive psychology, on complete edition of lectures. So this is taken basically from the manuscript, so this is hard to find in Brentano's published works, but in his sensory psychology, we find some evidence from this. So, he agrees with all these theses of physiology from his time. First, that there is no correlation between the quality of the stimulus and the quality of the sensation. So this is the thesis of Johannes Müller. This is not because, for example, you have a sensation of pain. Okay, when you have this presentation of pain, so some very bad Brazilian spider that gets to your arm and bites you, so you have a feeling of pain, but there is no correlation between the quality of the stimulus coming from outside, from the spider in this case, and the quality of the sensation. Otherwise, I mean, very dangerous bites of very dangerous spiders would have to be quite impressive also as a stimulus, which is not the case. So this is basically Johannes Müller's thesis, but in older physiology it wasn't clear at all. People believed that there was a correlation. But I don't agree with that. There is some work that has to be done when we analyze sensations. Actually, sensations, and this is a thesis of Helmholtz, sensations are interpretation of the stimulus. It's not that you get, so to speak, a direct acquaintance with the stimulus in sensations. No, you rather interpret in some way the stimulus. So there are concepts involved. So this is a thesis that Helmholtz defended. This is the local sign theory. This is something that Brentano wanted to account for. because it was a thesis, it's not an abstract thesis, this is basically the result of empirical experiments, right? So, another thesis, the fourth thesis, is that the relation between the stimulus and the sensation is merely causal. The thesis also that Brentano defends, and he also defends the thesis of the subjectivity of sensation. So, for example, the fact that this chair seems bluish to me depends only on the quality of the sensory modality of the stimulated nerve. So this optical nerve in my eye, and not on the nature of the stimulus. So this is thesis also of Johannes Müller's specific sensory energy thesis. So how does then the question that Brentano tries to answer in his descriptive psychology lectures is that how is a physiological psychology possible? So when we read psychology from an empirical standpoint, we have a very strong impression that Brentano is only accepting phenomena. So there is nothing outside, there is no stimulus, so to speak, we only have phenomena. But this is, of course, misleading the way he puts it in psychology. I think one way to summarize Brentano's attitude in psychology would be to say, psychology from an empirical work I've said before, would be to say, okay, so people just restrict the talk on intentionality to the domain of inexisting objects. In other words, it is too complicated if we want to investigate how we are related to the world. If we want to start psychology, we have to restrict the talk on intentionality to the domain of inexisting objects. The way I see it is some kind of a pragmatic decision, or a pragmatic decision to say, okay, well, for pragmatic reasons, we will just limit our talk on intentionality to the domain of objects that are in our minds, of inexisting objects. And then the second idea, I think, is that we should also restrict the talk on consciousness to the domain of mental phenomena, and restrict the talk on perception, the sense of knowledge. This is also interesting because Professor Jean was talking about this in his talk, so it is an echo to what he said. So one way to summarize or to rephrase here what Brentano is saying on perception in the psychology from an empirical standpoint would be to say that, well, we should restrict the talk on perception in the sense of knowledge, in the sense which supports foundationalism, to the domain of mental phenomena, and we should leave the rest to physiology. But physiology is a part of psychology, of course. This has to be taken as a whole. So I think this is one way of summarizing Brentano's attitude in the psychology from an empirical standpoint. So what does that mean? I think we could say something like this. So we have a privileged access to intentionality, first personal access. So when I see this chair, I just don't merely see it, I see it from a certain perspective. And this is not reducible to some kind of third-person account. This is Brentano's idea. So we have a privileged access to intentionality and consciousness and inner perception. But it doesn't mean that the physiological basis of these phenomena are irrelevant in psychology. I think those people defending the thesis tree simply just don't consider here the last part of the sentence. It simply doesn't mean that the physiological basis are irrelevant in psychology. And conversely, the physiology of sensations distinguishes between correct and incorrect stimulation. It studies perceptual organization, like in the case of Müller-Lyon figures, and these results are directly relevant for psychology from an empirical standpoint and for descriptive psychology in this case. So, how are we going to put these two elements together? So, as I said, I think that the thesis tree, which is perhaps the most broadly defended account of Brentano's conception of perception as strictly inner perception, I think this account, if we have this account, we should also somehow address the issues that are presented here in these 2 points. So I think one way to do it is simply to understand Brentano's conception of the relation between psychology and physiology, descriptive psychology and physiological psychology in terms of complementarity. And that would bring us something like the concept of perception in the broad sense. It doesn't mean that the analysis of perception in terms of inner perceptions are irrelevant. They are only locally relevant. So when we analyze our conceptions of the mind. So what that means is that Brentano's epistemology of perception and his theory of inner perception should be considered only as a subclass of this conception of perception in general. So when we are analyzing our acts, we need inner perception because there's no way we can perceive our acts otherwise than through inner perception. This is merely trivial. But notwithstanding the fact that Schein is design in Brentano's appearance is being, if you like, or he says sometimes that in inner perception, Schein is design. So what appears to us in inner perception truly exists. This is basically the thesis too. So notwithstanding the fact that this thesis is true, in inner perception, the source of the stimulation is essential for understanding perception in a broad sense. So I have a broad concept of perception, and as a subclass of this concept, I have a concept of perception in terms of inner perception. This is the kind of complementarity I have in mind. So it allows for different kind of classifications of our experience. It allows for basically two kinds of classification. A descriptive classification. So when you look at your experience, so to speak, you look at your presenting, what you see, what can you describe? Well, some presentations, some judgments, some acts of love, have some kind of intensity. This is a property of mental phenomena, right? Some presentations have more or less fullness. So on some conditions, presentations give their objects with more fullness than other presentations. There is also constancy and perceived location. So these are properties that you have access in inner perception, that you have access to in inner perception, and the kind of classification of these properties could be called, I think, in an appropriate way, descriptive classification. And this is completely complementary to this other kind of classification, which is a genetic classification. Genetic here simply means that we're not trying to account for the properties of what's living in our experience, but we want to account for how these properties came out, so to speak, or how these properties emerged. And so this is the idea behind the term genetic. So then we will have different classifications here in terms of externally stimulated sensation, or subjective or organic sensations, of sensations produced by the will, of anticipated sensations, etc. So we can also classify sensations from a genetic standpoint, and this will be one possible classification, depending on the experiments we will do, or the results of the experiments in physiology. So here you shouldn't consider that as a comparison like one-to-one. It is just like two columns relatively independent of each other. So the criteria here for the classification would be, for example, is the stimulation correct or incorrect? When you have an hallucination, it's real, you have an experience, but there's nothing. So there's an incorrect stimulation. When you have a vertical perception, the stimulation is simply correct. So this is the kind of criteria you will use in genetic classification. In the descriptive classification, you will use other criteria. For example, what are the properties attributable to all phenomena identified? So you want a general classification of your mental phenomena, and you will try to find the properties that range over all mental phenomena. Okay. So, why is perception in the broad sense important? And here I'm not saying why it is so important in my view, but why it is so important for Brentano. It happens that I'm also sympathetic to this account of perception in the broad sense, but I'm trying here only to use resources from what Brentano actually said. So this is a classical example of an illusion. So you have two straight lines, two parallel straight lines which are of equal length, but given the angles and the position of the angles, you have the impression that they have unequal lengths. So you want to account for the fact that, well, this is clearly an illusion. But if you stick with Brentano's thesis 3, or the idea that we have only perception of inner perception, then it's very difficult to account for the fact that at the same time I see these lines as equal, but I know at the same time that they have the same length. So this is a phenomenon that Brentano has to account for. This is very, I think, problematic or emblematic case in philosophy of perception. So this is our first desideratum, so to speak. We have to account for hallucinations and illusions. I maintain that the conception of the idea that I maintain that the thesis tree cannot allow us to account for this desideratum. That's why I call it a desideratum. So the kind of explanation that Brentano will offer, and he offers this also in the Sinneswissentheorie, is in terms of physiological generalization. In the case of the Müller-Weyher illusions I presented, the lines perceived as having unequal, the lines are perceived as having unequal lengths because of the overestimation of wide angles and the underestimation of narrow angles. But how these phenomena of overestimation and underestimation are to be understood? So I don't have an inner perception of, I cannot through inner perception get to the thesis that there is something like an overestimation of wide angles. You have to have empirical data in order to come to this thesis. This is why I call this physiological generalization. As I said, yes, it is based on the generalization of the empirical data obtained from experimentations. Further desideratum that Brentano has to account for is our perception of time. I call it desideratum because I'm here thinking about people defending the thesis tree. So people defending the thesis tree will have to give us a story about how we are able to perceive time. When I hear a melody, for example, on which basis I can hear something that has a succession. Inner perception, in Brentano's sense, gives you only the now of your experience. It's not something that is extended over time, inner perception. It is happening only now. So if inner perception is the only kind of perception, then we cannot account for a perception of time. You will say, well, when you hear a melody, it's just like a very complex series of single tones that are put together by some kind of illusion, but it's not actually, you don't have an inner perception of perceiving true time. This is an important feature, a constitutive feature of the thesis tree. So this is why I call it desideratum. If you defend the thesis tree, you have to account for a perception of time. So you need to supplement the account of inner perception with an account of the psychology of association. And this is actually something that Brentano does. This is interesting because Brentano, and Wojciech spoke about it yesterday, Brentano thinks that there is something like a retention. Okay? So when you hear a tone A at T1, you hear a tone B at T2. At T2, you still have, so to speak, retended in your presentation, this the former sound. So this is what he calls also original association. But original association is not something that happens on an intentional basis. It is something that is purely physiologically determined. So Brentano's hypothesis, and this hasn't been stressed enough, I think, in the secondary literature, is that Brentano's hypothesis is that our presentations leave what he calls a dispositional trace. After they vanish, some kind of after image effect, if you like. And what he also says is that this is testable and it requires experimentation. So I hope you see here already what I mean by the problem that we have with the thesis tree. If we have the thesis tree, if we agree with the thesis tree, then this account here must be placed somewhere in the psychology, in the descriptive psychology. But this is obviously not what Brentano is saying. Brentano is putting the account of retention only on the physiological basis. So here you see we need these two complementary domains or disciplines of psychology. We need a physiology of perception, and we need also a descriptive psychology. And there is, of course, further desideratum. For example, this is a more general one. If Brentano's, if we agree with the account of inner perception as being the only kind of perception, then we have to account for the kind of constraints that are imposed on consciousness by non-conscious elements. And non-conscious elements, for example, are dispositions, but what are the constraints imposed on non-conscious elements, for example, like powder perception? And Brentano also defends the thesis that there is a physiological limit of discernibility. For example, if I show you a picture of a crowd, and then I ask you, oh, did you notice the guy with the red hair? You probably certainly didn't, if there are like 700 people or something. But then a Brentanian defending the thesis tree would have to say something like this: well, you actually see it, but you didn't pay enough attention to it. This is, I think, a problematic reading. So we need empirical data in order to know the nature of these constraints, and we need perception in the broad sense to intelligibly account for these constraints. So, just a few final remarks, and I'll be finished. So, what is this account good for? So I proposed an account, a general account of perception, or a broad account of perception. So what is it good for? I think the reconstruction I propose is comprehensive. It makes a standard account of inner perception a part of a general account of perception, which incorporates empirical research. And this general account could be spelled out in the following way. So general account of perception, gap. What is perceived in the broad sense of the term may or may not be an intentional content as such. This is important. I could have done my talk with only this slide here. This is the only important point, I would say. So what is perceived in the broad sense of the term may or may not be an intentional content as such. Because, of course, as I said, inner perception is a subclass of the general concept of perception. So it may or may not be an intentional object as such. Insofar as we are aware that we perceive, so when we are inner perception, so we are aware that we perceive, what is perceived in the broad sense is perceived merely as an intentional content, that is, as a dependent part, or as a primary object of the whole of inner perception. So this is really the general account of perception. So the complementarity is that, well, in inner perception we have intentional objects, in outer perception we have real objects. But sometimes they can overlap when we have, for example, vertical perception. Okay. So there are some traces of this general account of perception, I think, in the psychology from an empirical standpoint. And I could research further here for further traces, but this is, I think, an interesting quote that Professor Jean also had on his slides some time ago. It's the idea that the presentation of the sound without the presentation of the act of hearing would not be inconceivable. So you could have like unconscious mental phenomena. It's not like technically or inconceivable, okay? At least from the outset, at least from prima facie. So, what does it imply actually? I think one way of reading it, one way of understanding what Brentano here has in mind, this is a suggestion, and of course, I mean, it's attackable, and I'd love it if you have objections to this, but I would say we could read it the following way. What Brentano means here is that it is conceivable that there are presentations which are not generally perceived. So, if such presentations are possible, okay, then some perceptions are not generally perceived. So, if you acknowledge for the conceivability of unconscious presentations, then you must say at some point that these presentations are possible. This is basically an application of the zombie arguments, right? That the charmers. This is simply an application of the argument in the sense that if something is conceivable, then it is possible. So again, Chalmers used the argument in another sense. So if there are people with no consciousness, these are the zombies, they have sensations, but they don't have consciousness of these sensations. If we can conceive this, then it must be possible. This is a very short version of Chalmers' argument. So, but I apply it here in the case of Brentano. So, if such representations are possible, then some perceptions are not generally perceived. And which one is that? That's trivially not the case of inner perception. I mean, it's definitorily not the case of perception. Then it must be the case of the perception in the broad sense, or in the sense of the general account of perception. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Fréchette. We have 20 minutes to question, 20 minutos para questões. Devido ao tempo e também para essa pessoal falar no cancelamento, a gente vai ser rápido nas sessões para que a gente possa fazer.
Quand vous avez parlé de la diapo sur les philosophes, partie d'un exclusion et de réponse. Et peut-être thèse présentée, c'est qu'il y a une relation même purement causale entre la sensation et la perception. D'accord? Et ce que je veux demander, c'est mais la thèse qu'il y a une relation même purement causale entre la stimulation et la sensation, comment Brentano comprend qu'elle peut se réconcilier avec l'idée de réalisation multiple qu'elle présente soit dans Melford, soit dans Muller. Enfin, la même stimulation peut produire des perceptions différentes. La lumière blanche peut se percevoir comme lumière et comme chaleur, et des perceptions, une sensation, la même sensation peut se produire par des stimulations différentes. Je vois du blanc et je vois du blanc quand je vais me voir sur mon œil. Et le problème, c'est comment on peut réduire ça à une interprétation purement causale. Parce que une théorie causale de la perception présuppose une relation, disons, univoque, peut-être entre la stimulation et le monde, la production du monde par la perception. C'est cela. Si on interprète que, donc, pour comprendre la théorie de la perception, il faut qu'elle se rapporte aux meilleures théories scientifiques du monde sur la perception, cela peut emmener à une interprétation et à amener une interprétation pragmatiste de Brentano sur quelqu'un pour qui une bonne théorie sur le monde dépend de bonnes théories scientifiques. Et donc notre image du monde, notre relation avec le monde peut se changer en mesure où change en théorie scientifique sur le monde. Et la seconde partie de la question serait bon. Et tout cela ne revient pas au fond à dire donc qu'avoir une réponse qui est plus ou moins dogmatique, comme par exemple la réponse des empiristes anglais quand ils disent bon, il y a une relation entre la représentation et le monde, elles se ressemblent, c'est la ressemblance. On va dire bon, il y a une relation entre la perception et le monde, cette relation est une relation causale qui évidemment peut se réaliser de plusieurs formes, et c'est au fond toujours une relation causale. Donc, comme on présuppose la ressemblance dans les empiristes, on présuppose aussi la causalité comme un élément de cette explication. La causalité n'est pas un concept facile.
Oui, c'est bon. Est-ce que je peux répondre en français ou je devrais répondre en anglais?
Speaking English, okay, good. Yes, it's a very good point. I think what Professor Starzynski was addressing is the problematic thesis here that the relation between the stimulus and the sensation is merely causal. And I think you pointed out actually to an important difficulty. What I would say is that I wouldn't infer from this that perception in general has to be understood in causal terms, but only that the stimulus and the sensation is causal. That means one way to put this in my reconstruction could be the following way. We could say, on the physiological level, when we look at perception from a physiological perspective, only from a physiological perspective, and when we analyze what is going on at physiological level, so how the eye reacts to different stimuli, etc. On this level, we have a causal relation. But the physiology of perception is, of course, not the whole story on perception, because we have also many perceptions of which we are aware, and they give us some object, okay? And these perceptions of which we are aware, so I'm seeing, for example, this chair as blue. I'm aware of my seeing, and the fact that I am aware of my seeing gives me this object as an intentional object. And when I look at the physiological level, what I see is a relation of causality. But the kind of complementarity I was trying to propose is that we can have a physiological level, we can have an intentional level, without having to argue that the intentional level is reducible to the causal or physiological level. So both of them can work together, but perhaps there would be something more to say about this interrelation. But I agree with you that if we say something in the sense that, well, Brentano has here a causal theory of perception that will go in a direction which is, I think, not Brentano's direction at all. So this is an important point to stress. So thank you for your question.
Hello, Professor. Thank you for your lecture. Just want to know more about how can we know stimulation is incorrect or correct in the genetic classification, and about the dispositional traits. I would like to know more.
Oh yeah, okay. Then I would give you, in this case, for the second question, one slide which is very complicated, and your first question just was, could you?
Correct.
Okay, correct, incorrect. Okay, let me answer the first question first, the second question first, because it has a nice picture on it. So, I don't know, perhaps some of you know this movie by Louis Funès on the Miser of Molière. So, Miser is le lava en français, and the idea is, the play is that we have the Miser, which is Arpagon, which really is taking much care of his money. So we could say of Arpagon that he has a disposition of penny pinchiness. So in some specific cases when money is involved and when his money is involved, then Arpagon will try to keep it in some very funny way. So we have the penny pinchiness of Arpagon, which is a disposition. Okay, this is Brentano's theory of disposition in a very complex schema, but it's actually quite clear. So it's actually quite simple. Sorry. So the penny pinchiness of Arpagon is what actually accompanies many different mental phenomena of Arpagon. Like Arpagon thinks that the children are plotting to steal from me. But why does he think so? Okay, so this is a genetic component. So why does he think that? Of course, we could say, well, because this child is not good, etc. But the genetic explanation is that Arpagon has the disposition of penny pinchiness. But what is this disposition? Okay, what Brentano says is that, well, it is a physiological structure of some sort. So the physiology of disposition, so if we take out Arpagon's brain, we could probably find the physiological structure. This is Brentano's idea. We could probably find the physiological structure that is the partial cause. It's not the whole story, but it's an important bit of the story. The partial cause of this disposition, it has a physiological structure, X, Y, Z, we don't know exactly what it is, which is implemented in his brain. And this is the partial cause of his penny pinchiness, and this disposition facilitates the different mental states, okay? So that he thinks that I should arrange a marriage in order to keep the money for myself, etc. And this disposition triggers these different mental states. But the final cause of the disposition is the pleasure, or the blind pleasure, as he says, in keeping the money for oneself. So you have a partial cause, physiological cause, but you have also a motivation relation. So what is the motivation for my disposition? This is the pleasure that I have in keeping the money for myself. So this is what Brentano has in mind with dispositions. It has a physiological basis, but there's a motivation relation. But this is something that you cannot investigate from a first-person perspective. This is what Brentano has in mind about disposition. But they play a very important role. They explain, for example, why you perceive the continuity in memory. Because you have this disposition of retaining the sounds, so to speak. And this explains also why when I do like this, you see a circle, because you retain all these single phenomena and they are, so to speak, dispositionally contained. But to investigate dispositions, you cannot have, in Brentano's view, an intentional analysis. And this is why it happens here on the level of physiological causes and of partial causes in terms of motivation. Is that clear for this question? Yeah, okay, well, yeah, it's a bit complex, but this is a very also. Sure.
But the final case, the
Final cause.
without the disposition, only with the motivation, could I do, he would do that. Or he needs the disposition.
Okay, so could we have only this relation here from the pink square? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. But then the problem is that, okay, we could have an explanation that would rely just on this, okay? But then, if we want a genetic explanation, how come that Arpagon has this position of penny-pinchedness? You could say, okay, well, that's because he has a blind pleasure in keeping the money for itself. But it's not the real genetic explanation. So what causes, so to speak? Genetic explanations are based on, are using, relations of causality. And and descriptive explanation, if I can use the term, are giving explanation in terms of motivation. So this is, of course, you could say, well, I'm not interested in that physiological stuff. I just want to have descriptive explanation. That's fine. But Brentano suggests that genetic explanation have to go way down to physiology. And I'm sorry, but I have to ask you once more, what was your first question?
How can we know?
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I think the only way to know about correct or incorrect stimulation is to do some experiments with people having hallucinations, basically. And doing these experiments, we rely simply on the fact that, well, there is no pink elephant. Everybody here agrees that I hope that there is no pink elephant in the room. But because I'm tired, I see a pink elephant. This is not true, but this might well happen. So, then we will investigate physiology of my eye. We will investigate what's happening in my brain. If we want to know why it is so that I am seeing a pink elephant, and then we will say, well, there is an incorrect stimulation of the optical nerve, or maybe an incorrect stimulation of some part of the brain if it doesn't happen on an optical level. So this would be one way of giving, of answering the question, is it an incorrect or incorrect stimulation? Or when I, for example, asked Professor Justine, said, well, if I have, sensation of white because I just press my eye like this, that would be an incorrect stimulation because there is no object, there is no whiteness perceived, there is simply, I just tricked with my eye and then, so it's an incorrect stimulation. So that would be basically the criteria. But it's also only in the physiological way.
Estamos para uma última questão.
Professor John, thank you for your speech. You said that in this physiological psychology of the unpublished papers from Brentano, you indicated a commitment of him with the thesis from Helmholtz about the sensations being interpretations. This idea of interpretation should be understood at the physiological level also, because or are we only talking of this kind of interpretation for something that is formed in my eye downwards and my brain interprets in the right position? Is this kind of physiological interpretation, or interpretation here has another sense of something more subjective or constitutive of the world?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. So I would just say Brentano agrees superficially with Helmholtz. And the reason why it is so is the following. Helmholtz has this idea that there are, in the physiological level of perception, that we have local signs, so that are giving us information about the location of what is perceived. So this is a very strong empiricist hypothesis that was defended also by Hermann Lotze and by many other philosophers that were influenced by Kant, basically. That is, so to speak, the physiological version of Kant. You know, space, you know, is a form of our intuition. So, space is, so to speak, yes, a form of our intuition. So you put it on a physiological level, that means, well, in the physiology, we have these local signs that gives us information about location. They're not presenting it, they are representing it, it's, so to speak, encoded. So Brentano is not very satisfied with this theory, but he has what you described as a subjective, at the subjective level. He has here he proposes rather here to give a subjective account of this localization, because localization is something that happens in Brentano's view on the subjective level. So when I have the sensation of this chair, there is elements of fullness, of constancy, and in the content of my subjective seeing, there's a location also, whether it is presented. So, but Brentano agrees with the idea that, so the first point here was that there is no correlation between the quality of the stimulus and the quality of sensation. There is some work to be done, and Holmes would say it's strictly at a physiological level. This work is done simply by the physiology of perception, in the physiology of perception, and then we'll say it happens at the second level. But this is an important point.
Thank you, Professor. Nós teremos uma conferência a seguir com o professor Wojciech Starzynski. O professor Gleison vai fazer a apresentação. O professor hoje vai apresentar em francês. O Gleison vai perguntando se é necessário a tradução, principalmente dos alunos.
Boa noite. Agradeço pelo convite. Converso muito. Je suis très reconnaissant pour l'invitation. Malheureusement, je peux présenter mon propos en français, mais c'est le français, je pense que c'est accessible à vous parce que je ne suis pas français. Ça sera bien évidemment beaucoup plus facile. C'est un peu risqué de parler sur Brentano après un spécialiste. Moi, je ne suis pas spécialiste particulièrement de Brentano. Et mon sujet est la question cartésienne chez Brentano et ses enjeux phénoménologiques. D'abord, quelques explications d'où vient ce thème. Vient plus précisément de mon travail de recherche que j'ai mené pendant plusieurs années sur ce que on peut appeler le cartésianisme phénoménologique. Cette question est à la fois très connue, plus souvent répétée, parce que qui intéressé par la phénoménologie n'a pas entendu des mots de Husserl sur le néo-cartésianisme, sur la phénoménologie. Mais en même temps, ce thème reste assez énigmatique, parce que quand on regarde de près la position de Husserl, on voit que son cartésianisme n'est pas tout à fait consistant. Il est très difficile de le saisir. Il change son point de vue. Et ce point de départ m'a amené à chercher les représentants, disons, de ce cartésianisme phénoménologique dans la phénoménologie française, où donc j'ai analysé sous cet angle plusieurs auteurs à partir de Sartre, de Ponty, Lévinas, chez. Et avec cette hypothèse l'hypothèse de travail était que si on pense du cartésianisme de la phénoménologie, il ne s'agit pas d'une thèse isolée, mais une thèse sur le cogito ou sur l'idée d'une science universelle. Il y a d'autres thèses qu'on facilement attribuer à Descartes. Mais il y a toute une série de thèses reprises de la philosophie de Descartes. Il y a toute une série de thèses qui sont d'abord mises en question par la phénoménologie, par plusieurs phénoménologues. Il y a tout un travail critique de contenu philosophique, de phénoménologique de la philosophie de Descartes. Et après, on voit une solution. Je ne peux pas faire dans ce terme parce que c'est autre chose, mais donc j'ai préféré, à mon avis, plusieurs positions beaucoup plus convaincantes sur le cartésianisme de la phénoménologie. Bon, ce qui n'étonne pas dans la philosophie française. Mais ensuite, on voit aussi, et ça se répète, ici les procédures critiques, donc certains anti-cartésianisme de la phénoménologie, en vue de l'élaboration de nouvelles positions en phénoménologie. On voit, bien sûr, le modèle de position très connu, c'est l'anticartésianisme de Heidegger. Mais si on peut la repérer chez les élèves de Husserl de la première génération qui étaient déçus par le mouvement transcendantal de Husserl, si on peut repérer chez Jan Patočka qui, à mon avis, synthétise tout ce. Et dans le contexte, justement, qu'est-ce que ça, quel est le rapport avec Brentano sur cette question? Bon, jusqu'à un certain point, on attribue, on pense du cartésianisme phénoménologique. On s'arrête avec Husserl. Mais dans cette attitude critique, on repère, ça se voit très bien dans le cas, par exemple, de Patočka, qui dit, pour vraiment comprendre en quoi consiste le cartésianisme de la phénoménologie, il ne faut pas s'arrêter à Husserl, parce que certaines thèses de Husserl, justement concernant le cas, ont été héritées de Brentano, n'ont pas été vraiment politiques de manière phénoménologique retravaillées par Husserl. Il les admis d'une manière pas assez consciemment. Donc, en fait, on pourrait dire ainsi le cartésianisme phénoménologique, le père du cartésianisme phénoménologique, c'est son serait Brentano. Et c'est le point de départ pour justement caractériser comment cette critique comment je vais m'appuyer plus de manière simpliste, comment Patočka présente, expose ce chemin cartésien, cette série de thèses principales qui ont quelque chose à voir avec la pensée de Brentano. Ça c'est un premier point. Peut-être qu'il faut synthétiser un peu.
Vou tentar. Bem, professor Wojciech Starzynski, ele disse, no primeiro momento, que é bastante arriscado aqui falar a respeito de Brentano depois de um especialista, o professor Fréchette, e se propõe, então, apresentar para nós aqui no colóquio o resultado das suas pesquisas sobre esse tema, sobre o tema, então, a questão cartesiana em Brentano e todos os debates envolvidos no domínio da fenomenologia. Ele faz algumas explicações no início, esclarecendo que o tema vem como resultado do seu trabalho de pesquisa de vários anos sobre o cartesianismo metodológico, fenomenológico. Cartesianismo fenomenológico. Trata-se de uma questão bem conhecida, seguidamente repetida, de tal forma que todos da fenomenologia já ouviram falar sobre o neocartesianismo em relação ao Husserl. Contudo, trata-se, segundo o professor Wojciech, de um cartesianismo difícil de se apreender. Portanto, esse ponto de partida levou o professor a pesquisar alguns representantes desse cartesianismo na fenomenologia francesa, como Sartre, Merleau-Ponty, Levinas, e a elaborar a hipótese de que, se pensamos o cartesianismo na fenomenologia, não se trata de uma tese isolada sobre o código, sobre a ideia de uma ciência universal. Antes, há uma série de teses retomadas da filosofia de Descartes, que são primeiro postas em questão pelos fenomenólogos, seguidas de um trabalho crítico da filosofia de Descartes, com algumas soluções sendo então apresentadas. O professor Wojciech pesquisou várias posições sobre o cartesianismo na fenomenologia, sobretudo posições críticas, as quais são denominadas de anticartesianismo na fenomenologia, como ele cita, é o caso de Heidegger, o anticartesianismo de Heidegger, além da elaboração de novas posições, principalmente no trabalho dos discípulos de Husserl, decepcionados com a sua fenomenologia transcendental. Entre estes fenomenólogos que trabalham nesse grupo, né, que trabalha no viés de um anticartesianismo, ele inclui, então, o filósofo tcheco Jan Patočka. Ao contrário do que se pensa, Starzynski critica o fato, ou a pressuposição de que o cartesianismo fenomenológico se interrompesse com Husserl, né? E encampa, né, assume a tese de Patočka, segundo a qual não se deve parar em Husserl. Certas teses de Husserl sobre Descartes foram herdadas de Brentano e retrabalhadas por Husserl. Poderíamos dizer, então, que o cartesianismo fenomenológico teria Brentano como seu pai, e o seu ponto de partida para caracterizar como Patočka apresentar o ponto de partida, professor Wojciech, caracterizar como Patočka apresenta esse caminho cartesiano por meio de uma série de teses fundamentais, de teses principais.
Merci. Donc, passons à cet exposé des points principaux de ce que forme une voie cartésienne, voie phénoménologique. Il s'agit à la fois d'un exposé de la philosophie de Descartes, en vue de voir ce point en quelque sorte implicitement inclus dans les thèses, dans les travaux de phénoménologues. Et ici, donc, est concerné à la fois Husserl et à la fois Brentano. Donc, ce qu'il faut encore dire, c'est que même cet anticartésianisme ne veut pas dire que les anticartésiens n'admettent pas certaines légitimités ou la richesse potentielle des thèses de Descartes. Donc, bien entendu, la découverte du cogito en soi et implicitement, c'est une découverte Donc, le cogito devient un principe de la philosophie, et ainsi, pour la première fois dans l'histoire de la philosophie, le principe philosophique est prononcé en première personne. Donc, c'est une découverte géniale de Descartes. À la fois, il y a la phénoménologie, mais pour user déjà reprendre l'expression de Husserl, au moment de la découverte, Descartes perd sa découverte. Et donc, chez tous les autres cartésiens, ça se répète bien sûr. Descartes formule son principe en première personne, pas seulement cogito, mais sum, avant tout sum. Donc, il implicitement admis le caractère personnel du sum, mais pour ensuite perdre ce caractère. Donc, il y a un mouvement réductif, ensuite un abandon des positions phénoménologiques, pour ensuite, je passe à la deuxième ligne, inscrire ce qu'on appelle la conscience dans le champ ontologique de l'essence de l'existence. Donc, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Ça veut dire j'ai, dans la formulation de méditation, Descartes dit ego sum, ego existant, il n'y a même pas mention de français. Je suis, j'existe. Il y a l'accent mis sur l'existence. Pour ensuite, il se demande même qu'est-ce que ce je qui existe. Donc, il passe sur le registre de l'essence, et finalement, en se servant des instruments bien connus de l'ontologie médiévale, il traite, développe le thème du cogito. Il ne développe plus en première personne, mais il glisse vers l'analyse faite de la troisième personne. Et dans ce glissement, il abandonne cette attitude de la première personne, et donc le résultat est que ce cogito, ce sum, devient un étant dans le monde. C'est aussi les objections de Husserl, devient res cogitans. Cet étant n'est plus personnel, il est impersonnel, il est porteur des propriétés, il est un substrat persiste de détermination variable. Ainsi, ce sum, l'ego sum, ego existant, je suis, j'existe. Si on se demande qu'est-ce que cette existence est vide. Ce vide signifie que le cogito n'a pas le corps, même si on lit de près, par exemple, les méditations, on voit bien que au moment des arguments, au moment du doute, il s'agit d'un homme, il s'agit d'un étant corporel, Mais toutes ces réflexions qui viennent ensuite font que je dors en étant sans corps et on peut dire même sans l'âme, parce que l'âme, même si Descartes retient le concept de l'âme, l'âme ne signifie plus, n'est plus principe de vie. Il a cette propriété de substance, du substrat, plusieurs propriétés. Donc ça, c'est à peu près le schéma. Bien sûr qu'il y a plusieurs versions de cette procédé critique contre Descartes en vue de retour à la phénoménologie, en vue de purification ou de retour, purification de l'héritage cartésien de la phénoménologie, mais dans cet exposé même, une des thèses était que derrière cette inclusion de Descartes à la phénoménologie, le responsable de cette inclusion a été pas Husserl, mais Brentano.
Bem, primeira observação que o anticartesianismo não significa que os anticartesianos não admitam certa legitimidade, certa riqueza de potencial das teses de Descartes. A descoberta do código como princípio da filosofia em primeira pessoa e princípio do conhecimento descrito em primeira pessoa é de uma riqueza muito grande, haja vista ter sido pela primeira vez na história da filosofia a assunção desse código como princípio do conhecimento. Segundo Husserl, no momento da descoberta do código como princípio da filosofia, princípio do conhecimento, Descartes perde a sua descoberta. Descartes formula seu princípio em primeira pessoa, na forma de um sum, código do verbo sum. Implicitamente, admite o caráter pessoal deste sum, deste sou. Mas a crítica de Husserl é que Descartes perde esse caráter, pois há um abandono de posições fenomenológicas para, na sequência, inscrever essa descoberta no esquema ontológico da essência e da existência. Descartes carrega as tintas sobre a existência para, em seguida, se perguntar o que é este je, o que é este eu que existe, para então, ao final, servir-se dos instrumentos da filosofia medieval, não desenvolvendo mais o código em primeira pessoa, mas escorregando para a terceira pessoa. Abandona essa abordagem em primeira pessoa e o código se torna um ente no mundo. Esse ente não é mais pessoal, é impessoal, portador de propriedades, substrato que persiste nas determinações variáveis. E aí surge a pergunta, este sum, este sou, essa existência, o que é? Essa existência é agora vazia de conteúdo, e esse vazio significa que o código não tem mais corpo. Todas essas reduções fazem do código um ente sem corpo e sem alma. Alma que já não significa mais princípio de vida. Há várias versões críticas no sentido de uma purificação da herança cartesiana na fenomenologia. E, je dis que, selon Husserl, c'était responsable de cette purification. Selon Platão. E, segundo Patótica, o responsável por essa purificação da herança cartesiana é Brentano.
Non, il faut faire
Ah,
le reste cartésien, donc le responsable c'est
bom, então se deve fazer uma purificação de certos restos cartesianos que, segundo o professor Wojciech, se pode fazer, segundo Patótica, se pode fazer recorrendo a Brentano. Recorrendo a Brentano.
Bon, on trouve ces genres de propos chez Patočka, entre autres, mais bien sûr Patočka ne l'a pas fait. Il le mentionne, mais il ne l'a pas fait. Mais quand on se tourne quand on lit sous cet angle le contenu de la philosophie, le texte de Brentano, effectivement, on voit certaines références cartésiennes, ce qui n'étonne pas parce qu'il y a plusieurs références à plusieurs auteurs. Mais en même temps, on ne voit pas vraiment grand intérêt de Brentano analyser la philosophie de Descartes. C'est plutôt, il y a des mentions, mais pourtant, on peut référer quelques thèses, je pense à mettre une thèse principale de Brentano, qui, d'une manière assez suggestive, font penser à Descartes. Il y a une référence peut-être plus implicite, parfois plus explicite, mais qui fait penser à Descartes et qui peut aussi justifier toutes ces hypothèses que je viens de présenter, dont je parle. Donc d'abord, le point de départ, si on lit la psychologie sous le point de vue empirique, Brentano introduit la distinction de phénomènes psychiques et de phénomènes physiques. Bien sûr, ça peut faire penser le dualisme, le fameux dualisme cartésien, bien que souvent ce dualisme cartésien, on le pense plutôt du dualisme domaine antique, mais en lisant les textes de Brentano, ce contexte, on voit quand il caractérise le phénomène, caractérise la différence fondamentale entre les deux. D'une part, Brentano, malheureusement je n'ai pas le texte en français, mais quand il parle donne les exemples du phénomène psychique, il parle de chaque jugement, chaque démonstration, chaque inférence, chaque conviction, chaque opinion, chaque doute est le phénomène mental. La joie, il y a une liste qui tout de suite fait penser à ce qu'on nomme dans les études cartésiennes l'énumération, la définition énumérative du cogito. Dans la méditation, on peut dire que Descartes fait la même chose, et d'ailleurs, c'est ce que confirme certains intérêts descriptifs de Descartes, que d'ailleurs Brentano aussi a mentionné. Donc, d'une part, on a le phénomène mental, qui, dans ce contexte, à la fois chez Brentano, il s'agit d'une description, il énumère les phénomènes. Et on pourrait dire, en le faisant, il répète en quelque sorte geste déjà fait par Descartes. Quand on passe aux exemples des phénomènes physiques, du coup, on voit que Brentano parle que tous les phénomènes physiques ont l'extension de la localisation spatiale. Ce qui fait penser aussi à la fameuse thèse sur res extensa, et donc l'attribut principal de la substance corporelle chez Descartes. Bien sûr, je ne peux pas dire que c'est justement un bon exemple que cette réplique n'est pas directe. C'est plutôt un problème qui se pose. Quelle est la relation ici entre Brentano et Descartes? Mais je pense que cette référence est tout à fait présente sur ce point. Donc, continuons. Ensuite, on passe à la thèse fameuse sur la relation intentionnelle. La structure de l'acte d'objet, qui est l'index de ce qui est pensé ou non, psychique ou non psychique, et de l'intuition intentionnelle de ce dernier. On peut dire que par cette opération, dans cette thèse, ce qui se joue, c'est aussi la mise en dépendance de l'objet au sujet. Si on connaît bien l'œuvre de Descartes, il y avait des interventions hier et aujourd'hui sur cette thèse. C'est un problème en soi à quel point Descartes a adopté aussi la thèse sur l'intentionnalité. Bien sûr, il faut évoquer d'abord que dans la méditation, il y a introduit une distinction entre la réalité formelle et la réalité objective, sans parlant, il faut ajouter chaque fois, sans parlant de essai objectif ou de l'être objectif. Mais après, on passe aux objections et réponses, il reprend ce vocabulaire scolastique, donc il reprend cet héritage de tout ce vocabulaire de la relation intentionnelle qui a été ensuite repris par Brentano. On peut de nouveau, sans approfondir ce problème, on signale qu'il y a un point commun. C'est aussi assez intéressant de suivre le texte de Husserl. En même temps, plusieurs fois, il se pose la question à quel point Descartes est le penseur de l'intentionnalité. Et on voit que la réponse est parfois, surtout quand on lit les notes, parfois négative, parfois positive. C'est assez curieux.
Em ponto de partida da exposição do professor Starzynski, Brentano introduz a distinção entre fenômeno psíquico e fenômeno físico na sua psicologia, fato que é bastante conhecido. E a respeito disso, nós poderíamos pensar no famoso dualismo cartesiano. Lendo o texto de Brentano, vemos que, quando ele caracteriza os fenômenos, sua diferença fundamental, fenômenos físicos e fenômenos psíquicos, Quando ele dá exemplos de fenômenos psíquicos, ele cita casos como os da opinião, da inferência, da alegria, da dúvida, como exemplos de fenômenos psíquicos. Ou seja, ele faz uma definição enumerativa do código. Descartes teria feito a mesma coisa, o que confirma certo interesse. Perdão, essa frase eu não consegui concluir. Quando falamos do fenômeno mental nesse contexto, trata-se então da descrição dos fenômenos. Podemos dizer que quando Brentano faz esse tipo de descrição enumerativa, ele estaria repetindo o gesto de Descartes. Quando passamos aos exemplos de fenômenos físicos, de cara, nós vemos que Brentano fala que todo fenômeno físico tem a extensão e a localização espacial como suas propriedades. O que nos faz pensar também sobre a famosa tese da rex extensa em Descartes, o atributo corporal do filósofo. Essa retomada de Brentano, essa retomada não é direta e é, sobretudo, um problema. Problema que nos leva a perguntar, e que faz o professor Starzynski perguntar, qual é a relação, propriamente dita, entre Brentano e Descartes. A tese da relação, ou a tese da relação intencional, o que está em questão é a dependência do objeto.
moi j'évoque, je rappelle que Descartes a formulé sa règle générale, toute perception claire et distincte est vraie, où cette clarté distinction est souvent remplacée, équivalent à cette clarté distinction est l'équivalent de la clarté de la distinction pour Descartes est l'évidence. Et donc, de nouveau, on préfère le point commun entre les deux penseurs. Et donc après, il s'ouvre toute la problématique de la conscience, et donc quand on suit la deuxième, le développement de la psychologie de Brentano, il considère, il analyse le problème de la relation intentionnelle, mais en même temps, il analyse cette relation quasi-relation de la conscience à elle-même, le problème de l'autoconscience. On ne peut pas justement mettre sous la même rubrique de l'intentionnalité pour enfin dire qu'il s'agit plutôt à la fois d'une conscience, cela s'est fait en même temps, à la fois une conscience d'un objet, et d'autre part, cette conscience est une autoconscience. Donc, cette autoconscience, il y a un phénomène de l'évidence qui est réduit. Et ensuite, pour finir, cette thèse cartésienne de Brentano, on arrive à la fameuse tripartition des activités. Les actes psychiques, la représentation, les jugements, les volontés humaines, les émotions. Cette tripartition, de nouveau, Brentano, les êtres vivants, il ne fait pas référence explicite à Descartes, mais en connaissant le texte de méditation, on retrouve facilement dans la méditation. Soit justement la même classification et mise en place. En même temps, on peut avoir l'impression que cette idée que parmi ces trois classes, le caractère fondamental tient à l'acte de présentation, on peut aussi la mettre en relation avec la thèse de Descartes sur l'idée. Descartes pensait l'idée d'une manière très vaste, mais en même temps, il la définit comme quasi-image. Donc, cette fonction de représentative est, bien sûr, mise en premier rang.
Continuando no tema de Descartes, visto pelo anticartesianismo fenomenológico, há uma pressuposição de garantia da existência a partir da alma, pela alma, através da alma. Tese metafísica que se concretiza em Descartes e que reencontramos em Brentano. Tese formulada nos seguintes termos: tudo que é mental é consciente. Daí o professor fez uma alusão a uma citação de Descartes. Por outro lado, há uma universalização de todo ato de pensamento pela consciência e, na sequência, uma valorização da consciência sob a forma da tese todo consciente é evidente. Toda percepção clara e distinta é verdadeira, e essa clareza e distinção é equivalente à evidência. Traçamos assim os pontos comuns entre ambos os pensadores, Brentano e Descartes. Se seguimos o desenvolvimento da psicologia de Brentano, agora, ele considera o problema da relação intencional, mas, ao mesmo tempo, analisa essa relação de quase relação da consciência consigo mesmo, que é chamado também, de um problema da autoconsciência. Não a podemos pôr sob a mesma rubrica da intencionalidade. Consciência, haja vista tratar-se de uma consciência que é, ao mesmo tempo, consciência do objeto e autoconsciência. Em seguida, para finalizar, essa tese cartesiana de Brentano, chegamos à tripartição das atividades psíquicas, entre presentações, juízos e vontades e emoções. Ainda que não faça uma alusão explícita, é sabido que uma tal classificação está presente nas meditações. Ao mesmo tempo, podemos ter a impressão de que essa ideia de que entre as três classes o caractere fundamental pertence ao ato de presentação, podemos associá-la à definição cartesiana da ideia, definida pelo próprio Descartes como quase imagem numa abordagem representativa do conceito de ideia.
Bon, donc ce sont les points de contact entre les deux penseurs. Je pense que jusqu'à maintenant, il n'y a pas, bon, il y a des recherches sur ce problème, mais je pense qu'il y a des champs de recherche prêts à être explorés sur cette question cartésienne. Donc, je pense qu'il y a les enjeux phénoménologiques sont bien présents. Mon exposé, je l'ai pensé en deux temps. Deux temps qui correspondent aussi à certaines histoires qui s'est passée. L'histoire qui s'est passée justement dans le contexte de la question cartésienne, qui s'est passée entre Brentano et l'élève de Brentano qui était Starzynski, qui, dans sa thèse de doctorat, juste après avoir suivi le séminaire de Brentano sur la méditation de Descartes, il a rédigé sa thèse sur le problème de l'idée de perception chez Descartes. Et ce texte, je voudrais présenter les détails donc d'une manière un peu plus approfondie, thématisée, détaillée le contenu de ce texte, qui est à la fois l'étude de Descartes et une discussion avec Brentano, une préparation à sa thèse sur l'objet intentionnel. Je vais continuer mon exposé à IFiS-PAN, j'espère. Je m'arrête là, je remercie de votre attention.
Sobre a última parte, o professor Wojciech fala a respeito do trabalho que ele vai apresentar em comitiva e também do texto que ele recentemente publicou, um texto que teve origem na tese de Kazimierz Twardowski, que foi um dos alunos famosos, dos alunos importantes de Brentano, e que assistiu ao seminário de Brentano sobre Descartes, redigindo na sequência a sua tese exatamente sobre os conceitos de ideia e percepção em Descartes. O professor Wojciech tem um artigo recentemente publicado nos Études philosophiques sobre a tese e a apropriação twardowskiana da noção de intencionalidade, particularmente na sua interpretação dos conceitos de ideia e percepção cartesianos. Continua em origem. E para quem está assistindo, vai lá no TFPE, tá? Quinta-feira, o dia todo, das 9 às 10 da noite. Bom, eu tenho que vender meu peixe também, né, gente?
Já merci, Camila.
Nós temos 20 minutos agora.
Perhaps I could ask a question in English, would be usually easier. So I'm quite sympathetic to your point that the origins of phenomenological cartesianism could be found in Brentano's thought. And you provided also good examples that speak for this. But I wanted to ask you, would you agree with that, with my following conclusion? So, Husserl's Cartesian reduction in his program of phenomenological reduction, I think if I get your idea right, it would have some implication, the following implication. Husserl's phenomenological reduction would have some kind of prehistorical sources in Brentano's distinction between the mental and the physical. So I think if we would want to retrace the origins, that would have perhaps this implication. And the second question, very short on your point that the existence is guaranteed by the soul in Descartes. What would be the equivalent in Brentano? So we would have perhaps something that, like, the existence of an act is guaranteed by inner perception, but the act is, I mean, it's ontological, but it's, it doesn't go to the. I think the way Brentano does it avoids what Husserl says about Descartes. That after the je suis exists, you just lose the ego because that it's an ontological thesis about the existing entity in the world.
Merci beaucoup pour la question. Bien entendu, pour la première, c'était il y a plus explicitement mon point. Je pense que mais mon point, c'est jusqu'à maintenant, je ne suis pas, je ne me considère pas assez avancé dans la lecture de Brentano. Je pense qu'il faut trouver encore des textes plus explicitement cartésiens pour confirmer. Je le considère plutôt comme une hypothèse qu'il y a cette préhistoire brentanienne du cartésianisme poussé. Parce que, au premier abord, cette thèse est un peu étrange, parce qu'il semble plutôt le contraire, justement, qu'avec la réduction, avec le tournant transcendantal, Husserl s'éloigne de Brentano, parce qu'il aussi critique le psychologisme. Bon, donc je pense que cette idée est déjà plus souvent présente chez Heidegger, mais chez Patočka, qui était un bon lecteur de Brentano, de toute cette philosophie. Je pense qu'elle est la plus explicite chez Patočka. Et il la défend, mais sans Patočka ne donne pas les preuves textuelles. Je pense qu'il la défend justement qu'une sorte de subjectivation est déjà opérante chez Brentano. Husserl peut-être la capitalise, mais finalement le schéma est toujours le même. Et ce qu'il faut faire pour l'intérêt de la description de la phénoménologie, il faut justement cette idée de tout cela parce que c'est un chaîne métaphysique. Donc c'est le premier point. Le deuxième point pour cette... Bon, j'ai simplifié des choses. Bien entendu, ceci ça fait partie du problème méthodologique du traitement de cette problématique. Il y a quand même une distance de l'époque du temps, mais en même temps, en travaillant sur le cartésianisme, de ces penseurs, on ignore souvent justement plusieurs opérations qu'ils font sur la pensée de Descartes. Par exemple, ils tout de suite font abstraction du contenu théologique. Ils passent tout de suite à la problématique épistémologique, comme si Descartes était contemporain. Donc il faut prendre en considération toute cette démarche. Et à la fois, je pense qu'ils peuvent le faire, dans Husserl et d'autres, parce que chez Descartes aussi, il y a plusieurs couches. Donc, même si Descartes affirme une thèse qui peut sembler juste une thèse traditionnellement antique, métaphysique, par exemple sur l'existence de l'âme, il y a quand même une autre couche, peut-être pas assez thématisée par Descartes même, mais si on fait recherche de textes, la plupart des cas, on trouve quand même des traces que Descartes était conscient du problème. Il a pensé le problème d'une manière soit épistémologique, soit ontologique. Donc il y a plusieurs couches. Brentano fait, comme il n'est pas historien de philosophie, il fait, et il me semble, peut-être quelque part, il justifie sa démarche, mais je pense qu'il il ne le fait pas. Pour lui, c'est un terrain, c'est un champ intéressant qui peut lui permettre à peut-être éclaircir sa propre position.
Sobre a primeira pergunta do professor Fréchette, o professor Starzynski diz que ela explicitou o seu ponto, mas que é necessário encontrar textos mais explicitamente cartesianos para se atestar essa pré-história brentaniana do cartesianismo husserliano. Para ele, Husserl se distanciaria de Brentano com a sua redução transcendental. Ideia que é mais ou menos presente em Heidegger, mas que foi mais amplamente defendida e exposta por Patótica, que a defende como um tipo de subjetivação já presente em Brentano, radicalizada por Husserl. A respeito da segunda pergunta do professor Fréchette, Starzynski diz que simplificou as coisas. Isso faz parte do problema metodológico do tratamento do tema. Há uma distância temporal ao tema proposto. Trabalhando sobre o cartesianismo desses pensadores, ignora-se frequentemente várias operações que eles fazem sobre o pensamento de Descartes. Ignorando, por vezes, o pensamento teológico, passam ao problema epistemológico como se Descartes fosse um contemporâneo deles. De fato, eles o podem fazer graças às múltiplas camadas que existem em Descartes. Mesmo se Descartes afirma uma tese antiga metafísica, como, por exemplo, a existência da alma, há uma outra camada ainda a ser tematizada pelo próprio Descartes, na qual ele mesmo pensa o problema de forma epistemológica. São as diferentes camadas que existiriam, então, na obra cartesiana.
Na terceira meditação, Descartes faz uma distinção entre três tipos de ideias: as inatas, as exteriores e as inventadas. Na sexta meditação, quando ele explica a diferença entre o intelecto ou o entendimento, como foi o termo na tradução francesa, a diferença entre intelecto e imaginação, ele se refere, por exemplo, a figuras geométricas com muitos lados, como o miliógramo e o quiliógramo, que teriam 10.000 e 1.000 lados, respectivamente. Quando ele descreve a diferença dessas duas faculdades, ele fala que, no caso da imaginação, quando nós imaginamos, por exemplo, um quiliógramo, a imaginação desenha essa imagem da mente. E, quando ele compara com o intelecto, ele afirma que o intelecto não precisa dessa ajuda da imaginação. Então, a minha questão é assim, se todas as ideias são quase imagens, como que imagens, e se não, qual seria a estrutura dessas ideias que não tem uma estrutura imagética, se elas seriam proposicionais, de gênero, como, por exemplo, a ideia da mente e uma ideia de Deus.
Merci pour cette question. Bien sûr, ce sont, vous avez indiqué les moments dans le passage de la troisième de la sixième méditation, qui sont souvent utilisés aussi par les auteurs, je ne sais pas à quel point Franz Brentano, mais par exemple, Starzynski aussi aime beaucoup évoquer cet exemple, se servir de l'exemple de Guillaume. comment, donc je pense que la question, comme si je bien compris, comment on peut comprendre le caractère universel imageant de l'idée, s'il y a cette distinction entre le mode purement intellectuel et l'intellectuel avec l'aide de l'imagination. Et d'ailleurs, Descartes admet aussi un mode purement imaginatif sans intellection. Je pense que Descartes, en disant justement, quand il définit l'idée, il veut la définir d'une manière plus ouverte possible, plus vaste possible. Et il ne dit pas l'idée est l'image, mais l'idée est comme les idées sont comme les images. Et je pense que bon, c'est un peu donc dans les réserves, il a plutôt un peu bon, c'est pas grave à cette heure-ci, je perds des mots sévères. Je pense que, justement, il ne dit pas les idées, toutes les idées sont des images, ce qui suggérait que chaque idée doit être une sorte d'imagination, mais ce sont comme les images. Je dirais que, justement, Brentano l'aurait interprété que chaque idée, il y a un moment fondamental de la présentation. Et je pense que Descartes n'est pas loin de là, mais il n'arrive pas à la thématiser. C'est ça la différence entre les deux philosophes. Mais, toujours, en analysant les textes de Descartes, donc plusieurs types d'idées, selon la classification de la troisième méditation. Je pense que, j'ai déjà en parlé en posant une question hier, je pense que l'exemple le plus intéressant vient du texte tardif des Passions de l'âme, où il reprend tout le vocabulaire, peut-être qu'il n'emploie pas autant de termes de l'idée, mais il reprend tout le vocabulaire qui sont épistémologiques de méditation pour le utiliser dans le contexte des passions, de la vie passionnelle, où on ne peut pas vraiment parler de la pensée de manière de l'intellection. Et chaque fois, je me réfère à cette question, comment on peut comprendre, par exemple, l'idée de Dieu, quelle est l'image, quasi-image de l'idée de Dieu, dans le traité de passion, il y a des passages où Descartes parle de Dieu, soit de l'amour de Dieu, que chaque fois, avec l'amour de Dieu, il y a une sorte de présentation de cet amour, qui est à la fois affectif, peut-être même imageant, mais qui a sa propre modalité. Donc, Descartes, à la fois, je dirais, il maintient cette définition, l'idée quasi-image, et il n'y réduit pas tout à. Il ne veut pas dire que l'idée a un composant imaginaire. Toute idée a un composant fondamental la base de toute idée est une présentation. Je pense que cette thèse conduit avec le travail.
Bem, você indicou um momento, né, essas passagens da terceira e da sexta meditações que são seguidamente utilizadas pelos comentadores. Com relação a Twardowski, particularmente com relação ao trabalho de Twardowski. A questão interpretada por Starzynski seria expressa nos seguintes termos: como se pode compreender o caráter universal, imagético da imagem, se há esse modo intelectual diferenciado de um modo puramente imaginativo na intelecção? E se eu, obviamente, também compreendi bem sua formulação. Descartes, definindo a ideia, apresenta da maneira mais vasta possível, não dizendo que toda a ideia é imagem, mas antes que a ideia é como imagem, ou as ideias são como imagens. Brentano o interpretaria dizendo que cada ideia encontra um momento fundamental na representação. Mas sempre que analisamos os textos de Descartes, vemos que há múltiplos tipos de ideias, segundo os quais ele pensa já ter falado. O exemplo mais interessante vem do Tratado das Paixões da Alma, onde Descartes retoma todo o vocabulário epistemológico das meditações para utilizá-lo no contexto da vida passional, onde não podemos realmente falar do pensamento ao modo de uma intelecção. Como podemos compreender a ideia de Deus? Qual é a sua quase-imagem? Nas Paixões da Alma, há uma passagem onde Descartes fala do amor de Deus, no qual há um tipo de apresentação desse amor que é efetivo ao imaginável e que contém sua própria finalidade. Ele mantém essa noção, Descartes mantém essa noção de ideias como quase imagens, ao postular que a base de todas as ideias é uma apresentação, e nisso tem uma tese comum com Brentano, ou seja, essa tese cartésiana é também uma tese compartilhada com Brentano.
Pessoal, eu vou adiantar uma hora, né? Seja por aqui, só para falar. Eu passo a palavra para o professor Guillaume, para recomendações.
Obrigado pelos bravos resistentes. Nós chegamos ao final da primeira parte da Semana de Filosofia, que é o encerramento do Colóquio Internacional Intencionalidade, hoje, 100 anos da morte do Presidente. E eu gostaria de agradecer, então, todos que participaram, começando pelos conferencistas, professor Fréchette, professor Starzynski, professor Mário, professor Guillaume, também os palestrantes, que aqui estamos, que não estão, o professor Ricardo, o professor José Cláudio, a professora Juliana, o professor Jean, o professor Gleison, o professor Fréchette, conferencista, e eu queria ressaltar aí o empenho do DEFIL, do Departamento de Filosofia, do PET-FILOSOFIA, que mediram esforços para realizar esse evento e contornar as situações adversas no momento de crise institucional, crise política, em que tudo começar a falhar. Mas eu acho que até essa etapa a gente teve um relativo sucesso e espero continuar com a realização tanto do evento apresentando 100 anos depois, em Curitiba, e a a 7ª semana PET-FILOSOFIA, na quinta, sexta-feira, né, cujas atividades iniciam aqui às 2 horas. Então, acho que por hoje é só, pessoal.